Well, time for a rebuild. Welcome back to the Ace of Rays podcast, where I talk about how bad the Rays are doing. Didn't start that way. This podcast series actually started very positive for the Tampa Bay Rays because they were going through a great stretch in their season. The first episode was June 3rd. That was kind of at the start, or at least towards the beginning of the run that they were going on, where they were fantastic, the best team in baseball over the course of nearly a month and a half. The second episode was middle of June, kind of right in the middle of that amazing run that they were on. Then there wasn't an episode for a while. The next Ace of Rays episode was in early July, where they had been on a stretch that was pretty negative, but it was sort of this kind of like 2 week stretch where they just weren't performing well. And I said in that video, okay, maybe it's just a slump. The Dodgers are slumping. The Tigers, I think, were slumping at the time, or already beginning their slump at the time. Um, you know, there were just so many teams that over the course of the season, like Cleveland, who's now doing fantastic, they were slumping at the time. They had lost something like 10 straight games. There were many teams that were in the playoff picture, out of the playoff picture, that were slumping, and a lot of like teams toward the bottom that were actually doing well, like the Baltimore Orioles. They were doing pretty well at the moment. So I said, you know what? There's no need to really overanalyze this. It's just a couple of weeks where they just haven't been performing well. Bullpen hasn't been there, hitting hasn't been there, rotation has been a little bit shaky, but they'll get it together. The next episode was about 10 days ago. Actually, exactly 10 days ago, right at the end of the All Star break, when it became obvious that no, this is not just a slump. So I analyzed what the problems were. And I gave you all the statistics. Yandy Diaz was not batting well. Junior Caminero, too aggressive. Brandon Lau, before he was injured for a stretch, and now he's injured again. He was batting 238 in his last 7 games to that point. Jose Caballero was not doing well. Hassan Kim, Josh Lowe, Christopher Morel. But I also did give you the names of some players that were performing well. Both the catchers, Taylor Walls was playing pretty well. Jake Mangum, Chandler Simpson, Jonathan Aranda. So there was this kind of mix of, okay, well, a lot is going wrong, but there is a little bit to look up towards. In terms of the rotation, there were a couple of pitchers, Shane Baz, Joe Boyle, and then even Zach Littell, who were doing well. Taj Bradley was kind of a mixed bag at the time, and then Rasmussen and Pepio were doing poorly. And then it was obvious when I got to the relievers what the real issue here was, which was that nobody was doing well in the bullpen. Um, Garrett Clevenger wasn't performing well. He was a lot worse than he had been since April. Pete Fairbanks, Kevin Kelly, Edwin Uceda. I didn't really analyze like the kind of here for a week type of pitchers. Um, but nothing was really going well at that point for the Rays. But there were still a couple of things that we could look to and say, all right, well, they're losing games, but at the very least, there is some little amount of positivity that we can take from all of this. And I was able to name a highlight hitter and give an honorable mention, and then a primetime pitcher. So at the very least, it was okay. It was a slump. All right, it's still a slump. It's an extended slump. Ask Detroit what that's all about. They're not. I mean, they beat the brakes off the Blue Jays yesterday, but before that, doing horribly. Um, and at the end of that video, at the end of that podcast episode, I said they need to win at least 6 of 9 games post All Star break. In between that episode, which came out the day of the Baltimore Orioles blowout win for the Rays, where they won 11-1. That was the first game back from the All Star break when things looked fantastic. But before that, they didn't. When I recorded that episode, they absolutely didn't look good. So I said, all right, if you want to prove to us that you are a legitimate team capable of winning in the postseason, of making the postseason, first of all, and then winning in it. You've got an opportunity here in the next 9 games to show us this. So you've got a series against the Orioles. They're terrible. You've got a series against the White Sox. They're terrible. You've got a series against the Reds. They have the same record as you. So the Baltimore series and the Chicago White Sox series, you should win both of those and you should sweep one of them. I thought that they could go 7-2 in that stretch, even. Um, the Red Series you should win if you want to convince us that not only are you capable of winning, but you are capable of beating teams that are equal to you, at least in terms of record. They were equal in terms of record before the series began. They were equal in terms of record right after the All-Star break, 6 games for each team before they met each other. And now the Reds are 3 games ahead of the Rays, but at the time they were equal. And so I said, if you want to prove to us that you're a legit team, you've got to beat the Cincinnati Reds. You've got to take 2 of 3. Doesn't have to be a sweep. Didn't have to be a sweep against Baltimore and the Chicago White Sox. I expected them to lose. At the very least, I expected them to lose maybe a game in each series. They lost many games in every series. So the 6-3 stretch, flip that on its head. That's what they actually went. They went 3-6 in the last 9 games. Not even close. Are you kidding me? They lost 2 series. And they weren't like the series against Baltimore had the ugly winning in the second game of that series too. So sure, they win the first game of that series and they look good doing it, and then they come out of that game and they look terrible since then. Um, Losing a series to the Chicago White Sox in the 2 games they lost, they got absolutely crushed, and then just getting swept by the Cincinnati Reds, in which almost everything went wrong in that series. So let's overanalyze again. I don't even think it's overanalyzing at this point. I think it's just straight up analyzing the team because they're not performing well. So we need to get to the crux of why that is. Well, I'll tell you why that is. Um, Again, I gave a lot of stuff about players trending upwards in the last podcast episode. There is one player, one hitter that I can say is trending upwards at the moment for the Rays. Do you want to hear who that player is? Jose Caballero. That's right. Jose Caballero is the best hitter on the Tampa Bay Rays over the course of the last 7 games that he has played in, and over the last 7 games for basically the rest of the team. Not that they've each played every day, but you kind of get it. Who's trending downwards then? Everybody else. Let's talk about the players that should be doing better. Jonathan Aranda batting 217 in his last 7 games. Since the All-Star break, he's been very, very bad. Yandy Diaz batting 185 in his last 7 games. For all the talk about how good he's been since whatever it is, June 8th, his batting average. A lot of that was well before the All-Star break. But in the last 7 games, he has been really, really bad, aside from maybe a couple of home runs. 3 home runs, I think, in the last 7 games. But outside of that, nothing. Josh Lowe batting 174 in his last 7 games. And every single hit that he's gotten has been a single. No extra base hits. Not a single extra base hit in 7 games. This is also a guy who 2 seasons ago had 20 home runs. We are basically between 2/3 and 3/4 of the way through the season now. He has 6. Jake Mangum batting 160 in the last 7 games. Normally, I would give a rookie a pass and just kind of skate over it. If he was batting 200, sure, but 160, what? What? That's unreal. He went from batting 310 like a week ago to now batting under 300. And then you have the usual suspect, Christopher Morel, who's batting 063 in his last 7 games. And it's funny to put Christopher Morel in the trending downwards category since he was never really trending upwards. He kind of started down here and then is somehow lower than where he started when the Rays acquired him. And even last year with the Rays, he's even worse than he was last year with the Rays, and he was not good last year either. He's only got 7 home runs this season. He had 21 last year. Only 3 of those, or 4 of those, I think, were with the Rays. But just not good. Not good enough. And then Chandler Simpson, who I will give a little bit of a pass to because he has generated some momentum, but he is trending downwards as well. In his last 7 games, he's only batting 241. And then, like I said, the only hitter trending upwards is Jose Caballero, batting 316 in his last 7 games. the only player on the Rays who is batting over 300 in their last 7 games. And it's Jose freaking Caballero. If this team is being led by Jose Caballero for the foreseeable future, which is definitely not going to happen, this is just a rare hot streak for the guy, they are going to be dead to rights. I can't wait to see what the record's going to be in September because, oh my goodness. And then, you analyze the pitching. The starters, there's really not a lot to say about, but 3 of the 5 starters are also trending in the wrong direction. You can say 4 of them if you include Taj Bradley, who's not even on the Rays anymore. He is working some things out in Durham. About time. Again, the guy that it's almost funny, he was the American League Pitcher of the Month last July, and this July is being sent down because he only has 2 pitches and is pitching very, very poorly. Ryan Pepio is trending downwards. He's got an ERA of 4.17 in his last 7 outings. Sure, he has an ERA of 3.60 in July, but an ERA over 4 in his last 7. It's not necessarily good. Had a couple of bad outings pretty recently. Over the course of the last 10 days since the last episode, Drew Rasmussen has had an absolutely massive regression. His ERA was 4.78 in his last 7 outings. In July, it's 4.50. His ERA in the month of May was 1.98, which, sure, it's maybe a little tough to sustain that, but 4.50 in 5 innings? You're basically coming in for 5 innings and giving up 2 to 3 runs in those innings. And that's not good because then you've got to get through 4 more innings with another set of pitchers, relievers. Just not good enough. His whip went up from, it was .88 in May, and now it's up to 1.38. So that's an increase of 5/10, which is incredible when you think about it. Also, the batting average against, it's not even so much of walks that have been the issue. The batting average against has gone up from 188 to 290, so an increase of 100 in that category. That's ridiculous. You're not going to win a lot of games with a batting average against of 290 in the month of July. And then Shane Baz, who pitched yesterday, has an ERA of 5.40 in the month of July. Not good. So the Rays really have, I don't know, 1 to 2 starters that are performing somewhat well at the moment. Zach Littell, kind of, although his most recent outing was really bad. Joe Boyle, who I guess is part of the rotation now, hasn't started a game in months, so we'll see how that experiment goes. But he's kind of your go-to guy now that Taj Bradley is in AAA, at least for the foreseeable future. The relievers. There's actually a reliever. There are 2 relievers who are trending upwards this time. This is the only category that the Rays are doing well in right now. Their bullpen has kind of gotten it together a little bit as of late. Mason Engler, who has been good basically since he got called up. He has not a lot of run in 6 appearances in the month of July. Edwin Uceda hasn't given up a run since the All-Star break. He's pitched 5 innings, which I think is 3 outings because he's pitched 2 innings twice, I believe. Kind of a mixed bag. Garrett Clevenger, who I don't understand why he is being thrown into high leverage situations with runners on base. He has always been horrible with inherited runners as far back as I can remember it with his time with the Rays. I don't know why Kevin Cash keeps throwing him out there in situations where he is basically inheriting runners, like bases loaded, like the other day. Or I don't think the bases were loaded at the time, but he inherited a 1-2 count after Brian Baker had to come out and couldn't get a strikeout and wound up giving up 2 runs, which were both charged to Brian Baker. But that inning should have been over in 1 pitch, maybe 2. But he can't find the strike zone, and he can't pitch with inherited runners. And then when he does find the strike zone, it's right out in the middle of the plate. I, again, don't know why he keeps on coming in when there are runners on base. He has never been good, as far back as I can remember, with inherited runners. So it doesn't make any sense to me. Um, Pete Fairbanks, he's been decent since the last episode that I made. He's only allowed one run, but he's only pitched twice in that span because the Rays haven't closed out any games really. Because they've lost a majority of them, a large majority of them, 6 out of the last 9. And then Ian Seymour had his first bad outing the other day. Um, I don't know. He's coming up from AAA. He's probably going to be in the rotation next week, considering what people are saying about Zach Littell. So I don't think you can get too hard on the guy. But he was fine yesterday. Just one bad outing. You kind of just take that and move on. And then trending downwards, the two real suspects are Brian Baker, who has an ERA of 11.57 in his time with the Rays. He had an ERA of 3.52 with the Orioles, which made that trade for the early second round pick or whatever it was, late first round pick, actually seem worth it until it very much wasn't. And Kevin Kelly, who has an ERA of 11.42 in the month of July. Forrest Whitley wasn't that bad. Oh my goodness. Eric Orzi, where is he at? He was fine with the Rays. He was the only Rays reliever that was getting anything done for months, for almost a month, and then they sent him down. And they left Kevin Kelly, who's been terrible all season and is now getting worse. Where is the end? What's the end game there with Kevin Kelly? Are they gonna try to trade him at the deadline? Like what? I don't know. I don't understand it. We'll talk about the trade deadline. Let's talk about the trade deadline now, actually. The Devil Rays advocate for today is, are the Rays buyers or sellers at the deadline? You have a tough time convincing me that they're buyers, especially after getting swept by the Cincinnati Reds. The argument, I guess, for them being buyers is, they're just, a reliever away, I guess, from being competitive. Brandon Lau is injured. Ha-Sung Kim is injured, but when they both come back, they should be better as a team. Brandon Lau, we know how much he means to the lineup. For really no reason. I mean, he's one hitter out of 9, and nobody else seems to be able to hit when he's not in the lineup. That I really don't understand at all. Um, but you can say, like, the team is in a slump. They've shown that they can turn it around. They did that earlier in the season, so just give it some time and just add maybe a hitter and a reliever or something like that, and then they'll be fine after that. Now, the seller's argument, which is a lot easier to defend, is okay, they're 3 or more games out of a playoff spot. I'm not even trying to look at the standings right now. They're not in a playoff spot. That's all that really matters. They're fading farther out of it. McClanahan is probably not coming back this season. We should probably be honest about that and just accept that he's not coming back this season, and the Rays should stop forcing him through whatever he's dealing with and just continue to rehab, shut him down for the rest of the season. Um, because there's no point at this point to, having him back, especially when they're bad in almost every other category. Like starting pitching has been all right recently. They've been still better than most teams' starters throughout most of this season, but they're still not very good. Um, and I don't think him as an addition is going to help very much when the bullpen has been pretty bad and the hitting has been pretty bad as of late. Manuel Rodriguez, one of the high leverage relievers for the Rays, is probably going to be out until 2027. They say, maybe he'll come back in late 2026. For what? The Rays aren't going to be competitive next year. If they're not competitive this year, what do you think is going to change this offseason that's going to make them more competitive? Um, Starting rotation as of late has been shaky. The hitting has fallen apart. They've only scored more than 5 runs twice since the All-Star break. And there are several players who haven't provided anything all season that should be moved. And like I was saying before, you've got, well, you've got several players on the Rays who are fluid in their roles in a bad way, who are not supposed to be fluid in their roles. They have a role, and they're not even sticking to that or any other role that they could possibly provide with the team. Josh Lowe and Christopher Morel are supposed to be the two power hitters. They haven't hit for power, they haven't hit for average, they haven't even gotten on base much over the course of the season. They have provided basically nothing. You have Taylor Walls, who is supposed to be the switch hitter who can't really hit from either side of the plate. He had a great game yesterday. He went 2 for 3, solo home run, the only run the Rays scored in that game. But for the most part, he's been costing him games recently as well, defensively. So, you know, kind of the argument for keeping him around is that his defense is really good. They save more runs between Caballero and Walls than anybody else in the MLB at their shortstop position. And then Taylor Walls single-handedly cost the Rays 2 games this season. They would be at least 4 games over 500 without those 2 errors right now, I believe. The one, 100%, the one earlier, but the one from this Red series too. Um, so yeah, I agree with the seller's argument, and I think that everybody who I just mentioned should be traded at the deadline, including Taylor Walls. But specifically Josh Lowe and Christopher Morel. They should both be traded. Who do you replace them with? The minor leaguers. You're rebuilding. You just go full rebuild the rest of the year. If you're saying that you're sellers, just go full rebuild. I want to see Andrew Stevenson and Tristan Peters in the big leagues. Based on how they've done this season, they deserve their spot in the big leagues. Christopher Morel does not deserve a spot on the Rays roster. I'm sorry. He doesn't deserve a spot on almost any MLB roster. He needs to figure it out down in AAA. Josh Lowe hasn't provided really anything for the Rays all season. Um, you call up Andrew Stevenson and Tristan Peters. These aren't just names that I'm floating around. Stevenson batted over 300 since June. Peters was the International League Player of the Month in June. He was a bit shaky in July, but as of late, he's been doing better. So you have a starting lineup of the kids of Mangum in left, Simpson in center, DeLuca in right. And then you have Stevenson and Peters as the backups. See what they can do. Maybe they wind up hitting even better than Mangum and Simpson are. You never know. But I think they deserve a spot on the major league roster a lot more than definitely Christopher Morel. And I think that you can stop hoping for a Josh Lowe resurgence at this point. We kind of hoped for it this year after he was not very good last year. And at this point, I think you can stop hoping for that because this is 2 seasons in a row that he hasn't batted well. He hasn't hit many homers. He hasn't done much of anything, really. I mean, he occasionally gets a big hit, but that's pretty much it. And not even as of recently. He's kind of a strikeout machine. Um, I think if you trade them, Josh Lowe has easily a spot on the San Francisco Giants. Christopher Morel, maybe to the Phillies, who don't really have a left fielder at the moment. Not that Christopher Morel would be any better than who they do have. And then Kevin Kelly as well, I think, should be traded at the deadline if you can find a way to not DFA him and trade him to a team that may be able to turn him around. Um, Maybe a team like that exists in Siberia. So maybe you trade him to Siberia. And whatever you need to do to basically bring back Eric Orzi. Uh, I'm a little confused right now how the Rays are kind of doing things because they have added position players when they've subtracted pitchers, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because that's never the way that they've done things. So I don't understand why they sent down Taj Bradley and then moved Joe Boyle up to the rotation and then didn't really replace him. I guess Mason Montgomery is a replacement, but where's Eric Orzi? Eric Orzi was the only guy that could pitch for the Rays for like months, at least a month. The last month, Eric Orzi was the only guy that could pitch for the Rays during their slump, which started in late June. Um, and he's apparently nowhere. I don't know what happened to him. And again, if you're gonna like, they're trying to get Forrest Whitley back into the rotation. He pitched 5 innings the other day in AAA and actually did pretty well. Um, so maybe you bring him up at some point. Maybe as a reliever, maybe as a starter. You never know. I'm also hearing that like Zach Littell might be traded at the deadline. It's the last year of his contract, so um, maybe that clears up space to bring him back. I think more so that creates space for Ian Seymour to move up to the rotation. I think that Ian Seymour should be in the rotation regardless. He was a starter in AAA. He was a pretty good starter in AAA. And now you've basically had him up for several weeks now, and he's in a bullpen role. Like, are you trying to ruin the team's future? The team is performing very poorly right now. And we should not, like, before anything else, the Rays should be thinking about, the future of their franchise. As long as, we're talking about them being sellers at the deadline. If they were playing like 500 baseball recently, okay, maybe to give them a little bit of a boost, maybe you just need a little bit more in the bullpen, but they're performing terribly. They're like, again, the worst team in baseball in the month of July. There's no reason to be playing for this season anymore. Like, basically, and I know I bring up 2018 a lot, but what the Rays did in 2018 when they made a series of god awful trades in which they got nobody in return, the trades themselves were understandable. The returns were horrible, and I never understood how they didn't get more for Wilson Ramos or Nathan Eovaldi. Um, but when they made those trades, they actually got better afterwards. They started playing some of their younger players. They started calling up some more players from AAA, and they started playing a lot better. And in fact, they were the best team in baseball down the stretch at the end of 2018. Now, they didn't make the playoffs because the third wild card spot didn't exist yet, but they won 90 games that season. They started that season 4-13. Um, the second that they started going to the younger talent, they got better because the younger talent is desperate to be in the big leagues and prove themselves and then stay in the big leagues. Whereas it seems like almost half of the Rays hitters have given up, basically the second half of the lineup. And then the top of the lineup isn't really playing well either, outside of like Chandler Simpson and then apparently Jose Caballero in the bottom part of the lineup. So I don't get it. I think that you need a fresh start. Either that or, even if you sweep the Yankees, I still think that, like, I don't know, maybe that gets the season back on track. But I, I think after getting swept by the Reds, they have locked themselves in as sellers at the deadline. I don't think there's any reason, no matter what happens in the series against the Yankees, who are also slumping, by the way, that they are not sellers at the deadline. They could win every game 20-0. I still wouldn't believe that they should be buyers or do nothing. I think they should sell regardless. They were playing really well when they were sellers at the deadline in 2018, too, by the way. Then they had a little stretch where they weren't as good, but they found their groove after that and had an amazing August. So you never know. And then again, as soon as they wound up calling up, Chandler Simpson and Jake Mangum especially, they started winning games, the Rays. Of course, it took, some players going on the IL to kind of bring that about. But when those players got called up, they were doing fantastic. Like, they were the best team in baseball during that stretch, and now they're slumping a little bit, um, a lot, uh, in terms of the team, but a little bit in terms of the players themselves. I mean, Jake Mangum definitely, Chandler Simpson a little bit. Um, I don't see why you don't just see what you have in the minors. Durham is like 20 games over 500. You think that they would be giving some of those guys a shot. And then in the off chance that they wind up trading Yandy Diaz, I mean, that creates a spot for Trey Morgan as well, who's having a great year in AAA. Probably a piece that they would have considered trading if they were buyers at the deadline, but they're definitely not. Um, so I don't know what you do there. I think you have to be sellers. At the very least, you have to sell off some of the players that haven't been doing anything for you, who I've already mentioned. Um, and then you just gotta, I don't know, find a way to regroup and try to be a little bit better next year. Because I don't have, I do not feel at all like they can turn this around at this point. Um, I have no, like, considering how well the other teams in the American League are playing at the moment and what they're doing at the deadline as well, and the fact that the Rays are talking more about being sellers and buyers at this point, like, they're behind Texas now. They're about even with Cleveland. Um, Kansas City Royals are right behind them. Even you go a little bit farther down, the Angels, the Twins, they're not too far behind either. So, and then you've got the teams in front of them. Boston, who's in a wild card spot right now. Seattle as well, who's performing well as of late. The Yankees, who are not performing well as of late, but I think they're probably going to figure it out at some point. Um, like, who are you hoping to pass? Detroit? Are you hoping that Detroit falls off and that, like, Cleveland takes over that spot? Like, I don't get it. I don't know who you think you're chasing, but you're not going to catch them unless everything suddenly miraculously improves for the Rays. Um, the rotation has been shaky. They need to be better. The bullpen has been horrible. They need to be a lot better. The hitting has been absent. They need to not not score 5 runs only twice in 10 days. They need to score more than 5 runs a lot more than twice in a 10-day span. So, with that much going wrong, I don't see how you can be optimistic. I still try. I watch every game, and I still, individual games, I think, oh, they're still in it. They might win this game. But in the long haul, I just don't see any comeback for the Rays this season. I think you regroup and you get ready for next year. And more likely 2027. And I know that's frustrating to hear because I'm with all the Rays fans as well that, you know, are tired of hearing about, oh, next year, oh, next year, oh, next year. Even when the Rays were good, it was all about, oh, but look how good we could be in the future. Like, I don't know, 2018, 2019, we were thinking the same types of things about the players that we had in the minor league system. 2020, they were when they went to the World Series, it was like, oh, look at how good Wander Franco could be before, he was a pedophile. Um, Through all that, it was all look how good the rotation could be in a few years when you add Shane McClanahan, and he was good, and then he got injured, and Shane Baz eventually when they got him, and then he was injured, and then Drew Rasmussen who was injured, and then Ryan Pepio who came over from the Dodgers, and he was all right. He's been all right. Tyler Glass now is made of glass, so I think they won that trade anyway. I guess that's why they call him Glass now. But like, even when the Rays were good, when they were winning a lot of games, it was always, well, look at the future. Like, even in 2023 when they got off to the great start and all we heard about was Junior Caminero and how good he was going to be and like the players that they had in the system. Um and then last year, like Isaac Williams, like as soon as Junior Caminero came up, it was like or yeah, Carson Williams, sorry. Then Xavier Isaac. And it was like, oh, look how good these players could be. Junior Caminero just came up. He's supposed to be the franchise defining player. We're talking about more minor league players. When are those minor league players ever going to make an impact on the major league team? And they do. And still, we hear nothing about the major league players who are doing well, even when the Rays are doing really well at a given moment in time. But we keep on hearing about next year, next year, next year. Oh, we're going to be good next year. We're going to be good 2 years from now. We're going to be good 5 decades from now. Like, can we just put it together and try to win a World Series one year? Just one year? Try to like focus on how good we have it, like have a good team just one single year. And I'm hoping with the new ownership group, it's not like they're not going to be afraid to trade some of their prospects to get good players in return. And then in turn also spend money on players because it's all about the prospects and the pipeline and all that. And when the Rays' top prospects aren't convicted for being pedophiles, they wind up leaving for elsewhere, or they're just not as good as we thought they would be, like Taylor Walls was. Um, it's eventually got to be this year. And again, new ownership group, they've got to make it happen. You've got to spend money to win in this league. You can't just sit back, and you've got a great farm system too. The Phillies don't have a good farm system, the Philadelphia Phillies. They have a horrible farm system. They are a good playoff team, a good team in general, just because they have gone out and acquired free agents. Now, if you combine having a good farm system with being able to go out and get big name free agents, then you get the Los Angeles Dodgers. Pre Shohei Ohtani, even, when they were just good, when they were just the great team that beat the Rays in the World Series in 2020. You know, they had Cody Bellinger and Corey Seager, players that they had developed that came up through their ranks. Then they had bunch of free agents. They also had Clayton Kershaw, who came up through the ranks. They went out and got free agents like Mookie Betts. They do the same thing now. They have talent. Andy Pages is, he's the name that comes to mind. Kike Hernandez, player who's been with them a while, who I think came up through the ranks. And then obviously Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. Like they do a really good job of that. I'm not saying you have to be the Los Angeles Dodgers in order to win a World Series, but if you have a good prospect system, which the Rays do, and then you couple that with being able to go out and get free agents and key positions that you need, at the very least, you have a chance to make deep playoff runs year over year. I would hope the Rays decide that they're going to stick with a prospect system. They never go out. That like the biggest free agent they've gotten in the last couple years was Hassan Kim, who's played like 5 minutes, and that wasn't even that big of a pickup. They just don't go out and get free agents. Like Danny Jansen, who batted 200 last season to plug a hole that the Rays had already dug themselves in at catcher, which was horrible last season. So who's your highlight hitter? It's got to be by process of elimination, Jose Caballero. 316 average in his last 7 games. He's got an on-base percentage of 458, which is pretty good in that span. He's still second in steals in the MLB. His average is up nearly 100 points this month compared with June. Of course, that is the difference of batting 145 in June, which is horrible, versus 237 in July, which is not very good. But in his last 7 games, he's been good, which is why he's our highlight hitter. Our primetime pitcher is the pitcher of beer that Rays fans are drowning their sorrows in. That's all I have to say about that. So, let's look ahead to the upcoming schedule. The Rays, before the next podcast episode, which is going to be August 8th, so between now and then, they have a 4-game series at the New York Yankees, slumping New York Yankees, who are playing really bad at the moment and don't have Aaron Judge. A series that you would assume that the Rays could at least split with the Yankees until you realize that the Rays are doing pretty poorly too. Then you have the trade deadline, where I would hope that at least 2 key players for the Rays depart in favor of high-end prospects that could help the team in the next couple of years. Then you have a 3-game series at home versus Dodgers, which was a brutal series for the Rays last year, including a walk-off grand slam. There's also always one high-scoring game between these teams every year, and usually it favors the Rays. So can't wait for the I don't know, pick your poison. Who's gonna start that game? Drew Rasmussen, Shane Baz, the game that ultimately ends like 15-14 in 10 innings. Seems to be the way that it's going with the Dodgers every year. And then the next will be like a 2-0 shutout at the hands of the Dodgers. And then after that, they go out to the West Coast and they play at Anaheim, at the Anaheim Angels, who are right now not that far behind the Rays. So you never know. If that series ends up in a sweep the same way the one they just played did, um, ultimately you could have the Angels pass the Rays during that span, during that series. It depends on where each team is at the time. They have a bunch of games until then, both teams, so you never know. But realistically, the Angels could be within reaching distance of the Rays at the time. So maybe they get passed by another team. Who knows? Maybe they are sellers at the deadline. Maybe they're buyers. Who knows? I think I know. I think they're going to be sellers. And if they're going to be sellers, again, the players. I think that if they don't get rid of Josh Lowe, Christopher Morel, Zach Littell, I guess, if you're really going to be sellers, and Kevin Kelly, if you don't get rid of, out of the three, not including Littell, but Kelly, Lowe, and Morel, two of the three need to be gone for something. For a future draft pick, for a low end prospect, for something. Give the kids a chance. And if they don't do that, there needs to be some turnover in the offseason because it's not 2023 anymore. And the Rays are not the best team in baseball. And they don't look like they're going to be the best team in baseball. And even if they wind up making the playoffs this year, next year, several years from now, are they in any position that they could go head to head with the Los Angeles Dodgers or the Houston Astros even in the playoffs in a 7-game series? Or the New York Yankees once they get their pitchers back? Are they in any position right now that you can look at them and say in the future, in X amount of years, they are going to be able to go toe to toe with this team? They're not anywhere near that right now. Nowhere near that. Unless something miraculously changes and they win 10 out of their next 11. If they, in this next stretch of, what is this, 10 games that they have, if they go 8-2 in this stretch, then maybe I change my tune a little bit. But they look horrible right now. And there's no guarantee, especially like I think the Dodgers series is going to be a good litmus test for the team because it'll show just how far behind the Dodgers they are. That's a series that I think you should anticipate losing. I think if you bet on sports, which I don't, and even if I could legally, which I can't because of my full-time job, um, even if I could bet, like I would bet on the Dodgers winning that series against the Rays. That is a given. That is 100% going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind that the Dodgers are winning that series. I think that there is going to be a split with the Yankees. The Yankees are just as bad as the Rays, so I mean, maybe the Yankees win 3 or 4. I don't think that'll end up in a sweep. If it does, holy cow, that's horrible. Um, and then the Angels series, I think the Rays win that series. So if you want my prediction, I'm not even setting goals for the team anymore, but 2 wins against the Yankees, 1 against the Dodgers, and then 2 against the Angels. So 5-5 during that stretch. Maybe they wind up even worse than that. Maybe they wind up 4-6. That wouldn't surprise me. I think the only thing that would surprise me is if they wound up 7-3 or better. Anything worse than 6-4, I would completely understand. Even if they lose each of the next 10 games, I would understand that. So, anyways, that's gonna be it for this one. Like I said, next episode, which is gonna be the last one until September, kind of works out well because of the way that I kind of run this channel. But that's going to be the last episode until September, the one on August 8th. It's also the next week, I think, is the one where they're all late night games. And, buddy, I work a full-time job. I can't be staying up till 1 in the morning to watch them play the Sacramento Athletics or the San Francisco Giants. It's just not happening. So probably a good time to take some time to not do an episode because I'm probably rarely even going to watch Rays during that stretch except for the day games. So anyways, thank you guys very much for watching, and peace out, broskies.